I became popular in StarCraft Chapter 161-170. Thank you all for liking and following. Please support me. I apologize for any mistakes in the translation. You can donate at Kasi Corn Bank 025-352-0310. Then let's get started. Chapter 161 Rules. Soon, Chu Yao no longer needed the heavenly consciousness to observe. The consciousness could not keep up with the speed of this group of things. From a distance, they looked like a flock of birds soaring above the fiery red stratus clouds, but the tail smoke behind them and the sound in the air told Chu Yao that they were not. This was a team of fighters. These fighters had a streamlined silver-gray shell and an inverted triangle shape. Overall, the missiles carried under the wings were shocking. There were 10 such fighters in total, and they were heading in the direction of the mechanism in the dense formation, and the target was self-evident. Chu Yao had seen them, so it was impossible for the baby not to notice them. It seemed that she had given up on chasing Chu Yao. The flames of the boosters on her body weakened and sank into the ground. The situation was obviously chaotic, and it was unknown what would happen next. Chu Yao just wanted to stay away from this right and wrong place, but when she saw the movement of the landing mechanism, she suddenly stopped. If you wanted to get rid of all the dolls, the best choice was to wait for the moment when she got out of the mechanism. After all, this person knew her identity and brother Xiao Ran's. If he really let her go, the consequences would be disastrous. Seeing her uninterested attitude towards piloting the robot, she should be a hopeless master. Who knew what kind of person would mess with her identity? Chu Yao calmed down, transformed into a man's appearance, and approached the downward direction of the mechanism. This large humanoid robot had already landed halfway vertically, and it was about to land, when suddenly, the surface of its body was lit by lightning, and it froze in midair. Chu Yao felt a tingling sensation all over her body. This feeling floated on her skin, as if static electricity was moving all over her body. She looked up, she could feel that the attack was coming from the air. Although these fighter jets were equipped with terrifying missiles, they used other methods to deal with the robots. Chu Yao quickly looked inside and found that this kind of attack did not seem to harm ordinary people, so she felt relieved. What was this? Was it a radio wave attack specifically for machines? She temporarily suppressed her doubts, hid on the roof of a slightly lower building, her gaze fixed on the robot's chest. The street below was filled with vehicles from the Yalai Company's law enforcement and security forces, and there were uniformed people with weapons everywhere, and they were evacuating the crowd. Chu Yao hid on the top of the building and waited patiently. The Zhuang sword was already beside her, waiting for the thunderous slash. The doll seemed to be still struggling, and the mecha that had lost one of its arms was swinging non-stop in mid-air, lightning and thunder emitted from its body flying around. This process went on for a long time until several heavily armed vehicles appeared on the ground. Finally, the baby could not hold it in any longer, the hatches of the cockpit on her chest bounced open on both sides, and finally her true body was revealed before Chu Yao's eyes. She held a strange formula in her hand and seemed to use some secret method to escape again, but this time, it was too late. The Zhuang sword handled by Chu Yao had quietly approached and slashed at her head in the second before she turned blood. The doll didn't even have time to cry out, her broken body slid down the mecha's shell and fell to the ground. After the fatal explosion, Chu Yao turned around and ran away without even looking up. She had been here for too long, and she was afraid of accidents if she stayed any longer. The battle just now had to be watched by many parties, and it was expected that a big commotion would occur soon. Chu Yao ran to another city district, and felt slightly relieved after she escaped completely. She sent a message to Su Binger, who quickly drove Chu Yao back to Princess Ye in a sports car. Along the way, Chu Yao was always uneasy, and she didn't talk to Binger much. During the battle with the robot, she had deliberately concealed her appearance for fear that others would recognize her. If anyone knew that Chu Yao was a psychic, it will really explode in the stars. After learning about the past and present lives between psychers and heavenly beings from Shen Yu, she was very cautious. There were many psychics like her hiding in the heavenly society, such as Lian Jining, Master, and the Infant. They were like this. But no matter where these people came from and what their purpose was, they all followed the unspoken rule. Hide and don't reveal yourself. The conflict between heaven and man and the monks had a long history, and the hatred of this institution could not be changed overnight. The infant might be an exception. She was forced to pick a mechanism, and this woman's brain seemed abnormal. It was as if she was high. What happened? I've never seen you so flustered before. Chen. King Ye looked at Chu Yao in surprise. He was sitting in the hall to confirm some information. Su Huohuo was also beside him. The girl glanced at Chu Yao angrily, then immersed herself in the book in front of her again. Xiao Nan beside her waved at Chu Yao. The house was really quiet and peaceful. It's okay, Xiao Ran and the others are back. It's been a while since I came back, and I just asked the doctors in the company to treat her gunshot wound. Chen Qingye still had a slightly puzzled look on his face. Is it that the matter has been resolved? Or is there an accident? Nothing, you guys are busy. Chu Yao sat beside him, thinking that Gong Xiaoran was still recuperating. She personally contacted the person in charge of Mao Yan and asked them to keep an eye on the latest abnormalities in Xindu and report news in a timely manner. But what she didn't expect was that the first person to contact her was Shen Yu. Did you do this? He also sent a message with the name Mecha out of control. Chu Yao quickly clicked on it and found that it was not very enthusiastic. Or maybe it was because not many people had sent it to look at it. Do you think I can drive an armored vehicle? She had to admit that Shen Yu's intuition was accurate, but she still didn't accept it easily. Shen Yu had been stunned for a long time and sent another video, and now Chu Yao couldn't sit still. This is a shot taken from the ground. I saw a humanoid robot shooting into the sky randomly, and then, amidst the exclamation, a huge sword appeared opposite the robot. Fortunately, their height, Chu Yao's appearance was almost impossible. Seeing her was just a vague black dot in the video. There are hundreds of similar videos, but they seem to have been blocked by the Yalai company. Otherwise, tomorrow's headline must be Psychers fight the latest battle robots. Chu Yao was silent for a moment. 1. Why do you think it's me? Because I only know you as a living psychic. However, Shen Yu changed his voice to send. Regardless of whether this person is you or not, as your ally, I only need to give you a reminder. You said. A second-level psychic without control, this is enough to attract the attention of the authorities. Perhaps there will be an army from the alliance of heaven and man intervening in the future. I can't guarantee that you won't be discovered by them. Do they have a way to search the entire world? Not really, but an unprofessional criminal investigation commander like me can find you. If you don't have all of them, there will be more professional people coming to Ling Yuan Star. Chu Yao felt a little helpless. And she didn't want things to develop to this point. Then what can you do? Stay away from the gas. The relationship between Gatuo Xing and Ling Yuan Xing is about to open for traffic. Why don't you go on a tour? I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 162 Borrowing. Travel. Chu Yao had to admit that Shen Yu's advice was very valuable. It was said that the richest planet in the Qinghai galaxy, Boquasing, she would definitely go to in the future. Not only one, but also other planets in Qinghai, as well as the Celestial Beings Base Camp, Dragon Earth Galaxy. But Chu Yao was not in a hurry, at least she wanted to solve the problem in front of her. Perhaps this matter was not as serious as Shen Yu said. She went to check Gong Xiaoran's injuries first, and seeing that she was in good condition, she went to Gu Yu who was imprisoned. It was said that it was confinement, but it was not so cruel that she was locked in a small dark room. It was just a separate guest room to prevent her from going out. Chu Yao pushed the door open, but Gu Yu didn't respond. She just sat quietly by the bed, looking preoccupied. How do you feel about revenge? Chu Yao sat beside her with a smile. It doesn't seem like there's anything special about it. Gu Yu played with her fingers a little awkwardly. Seeing her appearance, Chu Yao sighed. The sect was destroyed and taken captive abroad after experiencing such a sudden disaster. Not everyone could revive like Chu Yao. Even the monks who had risen and fallen in the past, in the final analysis, they were only those who had lived 100 years longer than ordinary people. Humans had 7 emotions and 6 desires, and there were those who had overcome the obstacles and those who had failed to recover. Gu Yu had suffered too much, she still needed time. Sister, You don't have to tell me what you think. Chu Yao interrupted her. You still have the intention to steal guns and assassinate, and you succeeded, which proves that you still have the strength to go on. The society of heaven and man is very complicated, and I can only grope forward, so I can't give you too much advice. Locking you up won't just show the people in the company, but also wake you up. Don't do such reckless things again. Take advantage of this opportunity. You can think as long as you want, and it doesn't matter if you don't understand, but you can't think without doing. Try harder, no matter how easy or difficult it is, as long as you keep moving forward, there will always be a way. Speaking of this, Chu Yao paused. Don't learn from Xiao Yaoxi, he is a cultivator, a madman, after all. Gu Yu was also amused by Chu Yao. Sister, you seem to be a cultivator before. The past is the past, the present is the present, and after I reached nascent soul, I lay down. The room looked a little damp. Chu Yao got up and opened the window, and saw the green forest. Perhaps because it was not a holiday, the sounds of children playing in the garden were much less than usual. There are many novel and interesting things in the world of heaven and man, you can go around and play more. Is this a mental adjustment? Don't worry, the money issue is with me. Thank you, sister. After listening to Chu Guyu's mood relaxed a lot. Welcome, my family. Chu Yao stood at the window and took a breath of fresh air. However, for your eyes, there is a way to restore your eyes with the technology of heaven and man. That's right. Xiaoran said. I don't think it can be replaced with an artificial eye. Guyu's hand lightly brushed the scar on her left eye. But I really don't want to do that. As long as the cultivation base returns to its original state, this injury should be easy to fix. So I plan to focus on cultivating the spiritual survival Jew first. Look, you have a direction, so there's no need to ask me. However, senior sister, there's still something I don't understand about the treatment of the spiritual survival Jew. A look of doubt appeared on Guyu's face. I've asked Sister Xiaoran before, and she told me that the key to the Kunling Jew isn't the word record, but borrow. The result of Kunling is borrowing the meaning. That's the truth about this. Borrow. Chu Yao rubbed her chin and started thinking. It seemed that Xiaoran had followed a different path from his own in studying the exercises. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether he had a black or white technique. The technique that could restore his cultivation was a good technique. Except for the secret method of refining blood. From Chu Yao's experience, Xiaoran's thoughts immediately understood. Those who extract the wall and steal light, the most important thing is to steal, use light to study the ear. Chu Yao put his hands behind his back with the gesture of an outsider expert, and left. Guyu's cool behind his back. I'm leaving, I'll know. Bar. Guyu began to ponder with a puzzled look. Chu Yao returned to her room and logged into the SWIC website as a pterosaur. For some reason, no one accepted my bounty. Perhaps many bloodthirsters were afraid of the abilities of psychers. It couldn't be better. Now, she just had to go to Fisherman's Wharf again, and she could accept her mission as a pterosaur. And then came the final battle. Let's continue tomorrow. Chu Yao summarized her plan in her mind. After having a goal, she felt more at ease now, and Chu Yao walked around Princess Ye's floor, greeting everyone she met. When she arrived at the lobby on the first floor, she found that Su Huohuo had disappeared somewhere, but Chen Qingye was still there, looking busy. Thank you. How's the company's income recently? Chu Yao took out a bottle of mineral water from the refrigerator and handed it to Qingye. Stable and good. Chen Qingye took a sip of water. Actually, I still like hot water. Then I'll boil some water. Chu Yao stood up. Standing, it's not easy. Qingye leaned against the back of the sofa to rest for a while and rubbed his eyebrows with his hands. What we can think of, those big companies won't miss out. If I have the chance, I really want to go to Qingdao. In order to check if there's no one around, Chu Yao didn't use an electric kettle, so he boiled water directly with a flame in one hand and a water ball in the other. Okay. With the power of the 5 elements in her hand, a pack of boiling water was quickly boiled, and when she raised her hand, it turned into a crystal and fell into the teapot of the Piadoxiang family. However, when it's done we build a spaceship. What? Chen Xingye was stunned for a long time, staring at Chu Yao with a foolish look. Senior Chu, are you serious? Of course you are. This is not our company's ultimate goal. Ahem. Chen Xingye cleared his throat. How much do you think it costs to build a giant spaceship like Yalai's? $1 billion. Chu Yao guessed with some guilt. If you're talking about 1 billion credits, it's barely enough to buy a civilian transport ship, and it's still a planetary level. Chen Xingye looked at Chu Yao helplessly, and almost wrote, "You really don't care about these problems" on the page. Wait a minute. Chu Yao's eyes widened. What is a credit score? I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 163 Monopoly. The common currency in Tianren society is Tianren Yuan, but when it comes to interstellar business transactions, companies often use credit scores to make large-scale transactions. The exchange rate between Tianren Yuan and credit points is 100 to 1. 100 heavenly yuan is a small credit point. Chu Yao looked up and thought for a moment. That is to say, 1 billion credit points is equivalent to 100 billion yuan. Yao's face was gloomy. How can it be so expensive? I remember looking at it on Fieo before. A single small spaceship costs only 100 million. It really is worth 100 million. The plane is more expensive. Qing Yu raised the teacup to his mouth and blew lightly. Then what you just said, how many people can a civilian transport ship carry? Chu Yao became a curious baby again. This type of ship is generally used to transport goods. Civilian transport ships are also divided into 3 types, large, medium, and small. If a general medium-sized transport ship is used to transport people, it can hold thousands of people. Finally, Chu Yao learned from his own powerful assistant. Learned the general classification of spaceships. The classification is simply put, according to the purpose, it can be divided into civil and official use. Civilian use includes the transport of goods and passengers. Star trains are a type of large cargo spaceships. General-purpose exploration ships and rescue ships can also be classified into this category. All official ships are battleships. According to the power, it can be divided into planetary level and star level. The full name of the spaceship that Yalai Company used to settle on the planet is officially Star-class Giant Battleship. Medium-sized civilian spaceships cost 1 billion credits, and Chu Yao, which is a large battleship, it is unimaginable. The point is, money is still a small matter. If it can be solved with money, it will be easy to handle. How to put it? Companies between the stars that have the ability to travel far have gathered efforts for at least tens of generations before heaven and man stepped onto the starry sky. At that time, it was the top wave in the heavenly human society. Do you understand me when I say that? That is to say, these companies have ascended to the heavenly human home planet very quickly. Chu Yao began to rack her brains to recall the history of heaven and man that Lu Xiao had mentioned before. What is the name of their home planet? It may be a company, or it may be a large country. Chen Qingye nodded. Only their forces and backgrounds can support the research of spacecraft. This involves the problem of technology. Technology. Chu Yao repeated quietly. Some civilian spacecraft can be obtained with money, but those star warships cannot be bought with money. In particular, the 2 technologies related to the driving force are controlled nuclear fusion and entropy accelerator. It is a secret among the secrets of these companies. How did these large companies spend so much time and resources to build star-level warships? How could they hand over their core technologies to others? Therefore, emerging companies like Zhixin and Qingshu in some places, the technical side is restricted from death by large interstellar companies. This is a technological monopoly. Large companies with giant spaceships, weapons, and equipment can expand, occupy planets and even galaxies, and obtain more resources. A company can't survive on an occupied planet. The strong will always be strong, and the weak will be weak and weak. Chen Qingye sneered sarcastically. This expression was rarely seen on his face. It is no different from Feng Yuan's sect dispute. Chu Yao understood what he meant. The bigger the sect, the more resources and treasures it can possess. These resources allow the sect to expand again better. And the monks who were attracted to join would be thrown into the battle for resources. If things were like this, Daizong would become more and more powerful, while Xiaozong and the ordinary cultivators' situation would get worse and worse, and they would have to rely on Daizong for survival. Aren't those big interstellar companies doing the same thing as these sects? There is no difference between monopolizing technology and monopolizing pills, magical tools, and exercises. Changing the soup but not the medicine. Then will Maoyi Company have to survive in the future? It is still developing. Are there other ways? Of course there are ways. I am thinking of ways. For example, we can build our own laboratory. Alright, let's not waste time. Let's do it. The problem is that there is no money. In any case, do we have to wait until we are as big as Hickson Company? Chen Xingye slowly raised his teacup. So, Elder Chu still has a long way to go. Let's go. You still have the mood. Drink tea quickly and make money. Chu Yao's tone sounded like a domineering charterer. Chen Xingye almost took a sip of tea. Do you still have a conscience? Those officials didn't order Huanu like that. Oh, then you drink first. After drinking, go and make money. Oh, King Ye has already gotten used to himself, and he can talk back like Xiao Ran. Do you really think that money will fly with the wind? Right. Chen Qingye sighed helplessly. This Elder Chu has been mysterious all day, and he doesn't know what he is busy with. Chu Yao skipped over the topic without changing her expression. Then, with our current development speed, how long will it take to reach Hickson's level? So, we really have to go to the stars to check it out. There are still 3 months before the star path officially opens, and we can grab the tickets. Alright, let's do it this way. Chu Yao lay on the sofa, looking up at the chandelier on the ceiling with joy. I thought I had taken another step forward, but I didn't think this was just the beginning. She thought for a moment, and felt that she didn't need to worry too much about building a spaceship. Isn't it technology? Isn't it just a spaceship? If you can't buy it, steal it. If you can't steal it, arrest it. These interstellar companies have done so many unreasonable things. What happened to stealing a spaceship from him? After thinking for a long time, she found that everything returned to its original point. That was her own strength. If her current cultivation base was at the transformation god level, or even higher, how could she be cautious and restrain others? Perhaps, at an unknown higher level, a person could counter the fleet, wave his hand, and build a spaceship that soared through the universe. It wasn't impossible. Strength could always be a breaking point. Chu Yao, who wanted to understand this, drank the hot tea in her hand and walked to the dark room underground. She had to be ready to solve Lu Yun's problem. As soon as Chu Yao left, Chen Xingye's ears instantly became clear, and he devoted his heart to work again. Time passed. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 164 Follow-up. The neon lights will be bright and the night will be colorful. Zindu No. 1 Stadium is filled with people and water. Today is the day of the Shining Rainbow Band's concert. It is not their first performance, but it may be their biggest of them. At the four corners of the circular stadium, colorful laser beams swayed from bottom to top in the night, filled with the sounds of people. In addition to the long queue, peddlers pushed carts selling all sorts of things, snacks, cold drinks, cheerleading sticks, and so on. Su Huohuo was also a member of the crowd, but her identity was not a spectator, but a security guard. The security guards of the Mao Yi Company were scattered among the crowd to maintain order, and their snow-white uniforms became a unique and beautiful landscape near the venue. This was the first time the Cattail Company had made such a public appearance. For many of the younger brothers and sisters who started out in the gang, this was the first time they had officially started working as security guards, and they were more or less unskilled. Fortunately, although there were a lot of people, everyone was still orderly and there were no major problems. Xiao Huo stood near the security checkpoint with his hips farting, looking ready, but the corners of his mouth were uncontrollably raised. There was nothing more exciting than going to a concert for a fee. There was a small school bag on her back, and Xiao Nan was packed in it. Ever since she had a fight with Chu Yao, she had always been by Xiao Nan's side, inseparable. Xiao Huo, don't be alarmed, we will open the door for people to enter, the partner not far away shouted to her. Oh, come on. Su Huahua jumped over step by step. Don't sleep tonight. A few kilometers away, the artificial river flowed quietly under the city lights. On the riverbank, a tall figure stood under a bridge like a shadow. His body was covered by a tight windbreaker, and his top hat was pushed down very low. From his broad shoulders, one could see that he was a mature man. There was a large black leather bag placed on it, bulging. I don't know what was stuffed into it. It looked strangely bulging. One person, one bag, standing there quietly. Sometimes, there would be cars passing over the bridge above, but no one noticed the strange person standing under the bridge. The sound of a motorcycle crashing into the water, the man saw a round white light on the riverbank. The white light rang out along with the sound of the motorcycle, and when the entire motorcycle appeared, the man took out a mask with a white background from his arms and put it on his face. The motorcycle stopped in front of him, and a middle-aged man in casual clothes jumped off the motorcycle and walked over. This person's appearance was ordinary, and his attire was no different from an ordinary office worker, the kind you would see on the street. He looked at the mask on the man's face, pointed at the leather bag at the man's feet, and the latter nodded. The middle-aged man stared at the man's actions carefully, as he pulled the leather bag in front of him. He pulled out the rusty iron chain, and the pungent smell of blood wafted to his face, causing him to furrow his brows. The leather bag was split into two, revealing a curled-up female corpse. Her skin was pale with no trace of blood, and her broken body was covered in dark red blood. The middle-aged man put on rubber gloves and turned her body over, so that her face was facing up. That was Chu Yao's face. After confirming the identity of the deceased, he quickly zipped it up again, tied the leather bag to the back seat of the motorcycle, and walked away. There was no conversation between the two from beginning to end. When the motorcycle disappeared, the man put his right hand on his ear, took off his mask with the other hand, and played with it like throwing a ball. Several human voices came from his earphones. Report number 3, the target has moved out of Nanhe, and the departure point is the east gate of Nanhe Park Square. Report number 16, the target entered Jinhe through the east gate of South Avenue Square, the direction is north. Report on the 27th, the target has passed through the branch of the Kansas Association, and is about to arrive in the city center. The man left the river bank leisurely and got on the boat. The car was parked on the other side of the bridge. The van was dirty. The driver was a woman, wearing sunglasses and a mask. When the man sat in the back seat, she started the car lazily, looking a bit unwilling. Where? Let's go first. The city center. The man replied after thinking for a moment. The motorcycle carrying Chu Yao's corpse was speeding along the streets of Xindu. The middle-aged man driving still had a tense face, but he was obviously more relaxed than when he had just arrived. In his opinion, taking the goods away from that terrifying murderer without incident meant that he had already completed more than half of his business. All that was left was to hand over the things to the employer. But what he didn't know was that every move he made was being followed by the stalker's gaze. At the roadside barbecue grill, a barbecue chef with a handkerchief was quietly playing with his phone. In the apartment building, not far away, a housekeeper quietly pulled the curtains back down. A delivery boy who was following orders sat astride his motorcycle and yawned, then put his hand on the earphone under his helmet. Their roles were different, and their ages were different, but they all shared a common identity. Maoan. This hall, which was born from the Mao Yi gang, had unknowingly become a large organization under the joint management of everyone. Now, this organization had been born, and in Xindu, this organization would have power that no force would dare to underestimate. This leather bag had changed hands several times, and after being unloaded from a remote alley, it was loaded onto a truck. After the van had driven around the city a few times, it was stuffed into the back of another sedan. This transportation process took a full hour. After walking around, the car turned again and stopped in front of an apartment not far from the city center. Those who lived nearby, regardless of their wealth, whether rich or noble, let alone this is a 3-story single-family apartment, it is not an apartment so much as a villa. Being able to own a single-family villa in Zindu, where every inch of land is expensive, shows that the head of the household has a lot of money. A car is parked in the backyard of the villa. A woman is sitting in the pavilion drinking tea. She has been waiting for a long time. Sitting next to her is a young man who looks like a woman. He is getting ready. Excitement and joy appear from the corners of his curled lips. It is Lu Yun and her illegitimate son Zhaoli. The delivery man greeted Lu Yun and hurriedly left. The courtyard was very quiet for a while. There was only the sound of grass and trees blowing in the summer wind. Looking at the corpses of the enemies nearby, Zhaoli sneered excitedly and was about to go up and see what happened, but was stopped by Lu Yun. "Why are you so thin?" She reached out to her back. He took out a bag of standard pistols with silencers and shot loudly into the purse. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 165 Confrontation. Lu Yun held the gun firmly in one hand and pulled the trigger. The gunshots rang out like a stream, and cordyceps flew in shock. They didn't stop until they had completely emptied their magazines. The leather bag was already full of holes, and blood was seeping out along the surface along the bullet holes. After waiting for a while without seeing any movement, he nodded to his son. Zhaoli finally laughed with satisfaction, his face full of joy at killing his enemy, even though he didn't do it himself. Mother is smart, eliminate the Tianyan sect's unruly old man without trying. Stop flattering me, I spent a lot of money to find her. Lu Yun followed Zhaoli and walked to the purse. He wouldn't stop until he saw Chu Yao's corpse with his own eyes. No matter what, it finally relieved my mother's terrible evil. Don't say it, these bloodlines really have some skills. Zhaoli crouched down and reached out to Zhongzi. He didn't fall under the gun of heaven and man after all. I heard that Senior Chu set up a company with her. Oh my, do you think we can use the same trick over and over again to take her party away? He hadn't spoken yet, after which he stopped it. Him. The mouths and faces of the two of them stiffened at the same time. There was no Chu Yao's corpse in that bag. It was clearly a dead pig. Zhao Li's expression changed greatly, but Lu Yun's expression remained the same. She quickly responded, pulling Zhao Li back a few steps, and her spiritual sense swept across the surroundings of the villa. Mother, on the head. Lu Yun followed Zhao Li's finger and looked up. I saw a tall figure standing on the grass wall, more than 2 meters high, looking down at the two of them. Under the man's top hat a mask painted with the shape of a pterosaur appeared under the leaves covering it. Who is it? Lu Yun pulled out another pistol from her waist and pointed it at the person who came. She secretly wondered in her heart that the divine sense couldn't find him. Elder Lu, please stay safe. The man jumped down from the wall, put his hand on the windbreaker, and turned into a young girl. Who else could it be if not Chu Yao? She had planned for too long today. Starting from infiltrating the Blood Alliance, after many twists and turns, he finally found the real culprit who plotted against him right in front of him. Chu Yao. Lu Yun's eyes narrowed into a straight line. I know that killing you won't be easy. Chu Yao didn't answer. She just moved her neck and wrist lightly, and there was a creaking sound from her muscles and bones. Elder Lu, it's not easy to find you. Each other. Lu Yun held the gun tightly in her hand. And his consciousness kept looking at Chu Yao's body. The other party gave her a strange feeling. The spiritual power seemed to merge with the night, unpredictable, and she could only vaguely feel the middle stage of the Foundation establishment cultivation base. This made her not dare to act rashly. While she was observing Chu Yao also observed her. Lu Yun had already reached the middle stage of Foundation establishment. In fact, she felt a little surprised. She was so close now, but Lu Yun's spiritual sense didn't seem to notice her. After cultivating the Mingling Ju, Chu Yao's spiritual power seemed to have undergone a slight change, which made it easier for her to conceal her whereabouts in the dark environment. I didn't notice it before because there was no suitable opponent. Now that they were facing each other at the same level, the advantage of the Mingling Ju was just starting to show. Elder Liu's cultivation has recovered very quickly. I wonder which hall of the Kongyun sect is the secret method. Elder Chu is the one who recovered to the golden core level in just a few years. Where did he get the chance? Chu, the rumor didn't change her face. She knew that Lu Yun couldn't understand her own strength, so she said this to cheat. She didn't reject Lu Yun, but followed her words, since you know that I'm a Jindan cultivator now, why don't you run away and die here? It seemed that only Zhao Li was still outside the situation. Hearing the conversation between the two, the child turned pale with shock. Jin, a golden core cultivator. Mom, hurry up. Lu Yun threw it away ruthlessly. She was disappointed. The son glanced at him, pursed his lips, and sent a message into his ear. I don't know what she said to Zhao Li, but the latter looked relieved and calmed down a lot. This Zhao Li was now at the 9th level of Qi refining, not to mention golden core. He couldn't interfere in the battle at the foundation establishment stage. If he really fought, he would have to wait for death. Senior Lu seems to have a plan in mind. Chu Yao's consciousness swept across the villa behind the two of them, and he had already discovered the change within. Senior Chu is able to hide the truth in front of those bloodthirsty people. It's really a good plan. It's a pity that he calculated, but he still participated. Lu Yun waved forward with one hand. Since you've been trapped, don't blame me, I'm so cruel. As she waved her hand, Chu Yao felt dizzy. Looking closely, dozens of red dots on her clothes shook slightly. The source of these red dots was the villa behind Lu Yun. At this time, a large number of people in full body armor appeared on the windows and roof of the villa, and guns in their hands locked on Chu Yao's body from various angles. Their uniforms looked familiar to Chu Yao. These people should be the security forces of the Yalai company. Senior Lu is so talented that he can command these people. I wonder if this is the personal use of the officers and soldiers. Stop talking nonsense now that you have lost your wings. If you immediately abandon your training, I can spare your life. Self-defeating training. Chu Yao sneered. Things had already come to this point. She didn't need to talk to Lu Yun pretending. Lu Yun, if this is your second in command, then I really overestimated you. Lu Yun thought to himself. Hearing Chu Yao's words, he was instantly shocked. His consciousness dispersed in a hurry, and on the road in the distance, a convoy of vehicles rushed towards this place from all directions, with the potential to encircle them. She sent a voice signal to Zhao Li again, and the latter immediately retreated after hearing this, turning around and running away under the cover of the troops. Chu Yao didn't care about Zhao Li's escape. She had her own arrangements for this person. But upon seeing Zhao Li, Chu Yao suddenly thought of something and laughed out loud. What are you laughing about? I suddenly thought of something interesting. Chu Yao raised his eyebrows and teased. It is no exaggeration to say that you lined up from Kongyun Hall to Tianyan Mountain Gate. There were many suitors who loved you, but you rejected them one by one. I gave birth to a child. Chu Yao tilted her head slightly towards where Zhao Li had left. I just don't know, this child is another illegitimate child you gave birth to with a man. Where did you come from, old Lu? Lu Yun bit her lip fiercely, trembling with anger. Her gaze looking at Chu Yao couldn't be colder. Fire. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 166 Fierce Battle. At Lu Yun's order, gunshots immediately exploded in the courtyard. She didn't choose to shoot together, but retreated fiercely with the bullets, and charged into the villa. Let her use it with so many guns alone. Naturally, Chu Yao would not sit idly by and die. Following the night journey formula, she instantly melted into the darkness. And follow Lu Yun like a shadow. Nowadays, she has long been accustomed to people's guns and ignores them. As long as you run fast enough, the bullets can't hurt her at all. Sure enough, after losing the target, the gunfire everywhere was dark. The sound of the distant car was approaching. That was the more than 100 high-ranking people that Chu Yao had reserved in advance. They were ready to go. Chu Yao didn't ask them to kill the enemy. It didn't matter whether the people wearing the uniforms of the Yalai company were members of the security company. As long as they were captured, that was enough. Her target was Lu Yun. Pink lines and purple-red lines. The bodies of the two people turned into two very fast spirit rays, rushing back and forth between the corridors on the first floor of the villa. The strong wind blew away the rare antiques displayed everywhere, and the sound of ping-pong. Chu Yao immediately approached Lu Yun, and the speed was shocking. With a wave of her arm, she pulled out the soul saber and slashed it at Lu Yun's back. Feeling the threat from behind, Lu Yun made a strange arc in midair, and the soul-sucking knife fell on the wall in front of her. Cut the famous painting with a beautiful frame in half. This kidnapping made her lose the advantage of distance. Chu Yao's left palm shone with spiritual light, and she slapped Lu Yun's chest hard. Lu Yun snorted coldly, her right hand gathered her spiritual power, and she fought in the air. The palms clashed violently, and the wind blew in. The two of them took half a step back. They were even and evenly divided. Lu Yun wiped her head with her left hand, and the 3 silver hairpins turned into hidden weapons, and shot at Chu Yao's face with a scream. Chu Yao's neck shook, the horse's tail swung behind her head, and 2 spirit stones exploded with the wind, and exploded in an instant, dissipating along with the hairpins in the smoke. The gunpowder smoke dissipated, Lu Yun retreated several meters, the spell in his hand changed, the ground shook, the bricks and stones collapsed, and a huge stone snake slashed through the ground, biting towards Chu Yao with a wide-open blood-stained mouth. Chu Yao's complexion remained unchanged. She stretched out her hand to hook, and on the flower pots around Chen Fang, flowers, plants, and branches came at her command, like 100 green flying swords piercing through the snake and directly attacking Lu Yun. Lu Yun placed her fingers in a circle in front of her lips, puffed out her cheeks, and spat out a ball of fire. Yejian's flying flowers were burned to ashes, and fell to the ground silently. Taking advantage of Lu Yun's ability to repel fire, Chu Yao clasped his hands together seductively on his chest. The movement was so fast that it almost left an afterimage, and a ghost door with bones of the dead appeared. Don't even think about calling your demon soldiers and generals. Lu Yun naturally noticed Chu Yao's actions. How could she let him do whatever he wanted? Lu Yun shortened and jumped in front of Chu Yao. The fire in his hand turned into a 3-foot-long flame sword, and he slashed at his face furiously. Chu Yao's movements were interrupted, so she had to retreat temporarily. The ghost door could not hold, only a few faint shadows were left in midair. She reached out to grab it, put those light shadows in her hand, breathed out the ice, stomped her feet to expel the ghosts. The dark black knife instantly transformed into shape, and clashed with the flame sword. The two fought back and forth, and they fought dozens of rounds in just a few seconds. In the hall, there was a tongue of fire, the ghosts howled like crying, the swords, the lights, and the swords continued, the walls and furniture collapsed in an instant. And debris everywhere. Chu Yao's hair was a little messy, but her eyes were shining. This battle was really fierce. Since she came to Ling Yuan Star, she hadn't experienced such an exciting battle on the same level for a long time. Chu Yao danced with the ghost knife in her hand, like a tiger descending from the mountain, becoming more and more courageous as it fought, causing Lu Yun to retreat time and time again, and gradually taking the initiative. After the battle ended, she laughed out loud, and the spiritual energy in her body seemed to be trembling with excitement from this fierce battle. What are you laughing about? Lu Yun was shocked and angry. She noticed that Chu Yao's spiritual energy seemed to be different from the one she had encountered in Feng Yuanxing in the past. The coldness that seeped into her bones made her brows furrow. Happy. Chu Yao initiated the Ming Ling Ju, and spiritual energy flowed out, and the ghost knife in her hand rose a few feet, as if holding a sickle, trying to cut off the fire sword in Lu Yun's hand. Happy? I will make you happy. Lu Yun stopped fighting and threw the fire sword in his hand at Chu Yao. Taking advantage of his opponent's deflection, he provoked the 3 giant stone snakes again to block him, forming a seal on his chest. A swarm of fire butterflies formed around them. Don't even think about using the fire butterfly secret technique. The two of them were from Feng Yuan together, and they were also Yuanying monks. They could be described as old friends, and they naturally knew some of the other party's methods. With a huge wave from Chu Yao's hand, 3 soul-sucking knives shot up. The target was not the 3 stone snakes in front of him, but the chandelier above Lu Yun's head. The iron chains of the chandelier shattered with an unpleasant cracking sound, and a large chandelier fell like a meteorite from the sky towards Lu Yun, who was chanting below. Lu Yun had no choice but to interrupt the seal, leaning against the bookshelf beside her and jumping to the side, avoiding the attack from the sky. The lanterns and hanging chains were broken into pieces and flew away. The broken candles were entangled with scattered sparks, and the flames began to spread quietly in the villa. She still hadn't stabilized. The bloodthirsty xiao tens of curves rushed towards her like mountains and seas flooding. Lu Yun summoned the protective aura of the body, and the bright pink translucent shield was about to break after 4 or 5 strikes. Lu Yun gritted her teeth, poured her spiritual power into the shield, and cast a series of spells with a loud bang like a bell. This ballad of Chu was famous for fighting in the Northern Territory. If it was dragged away for fear of an accident, it would be better to fix it quickly. Chu Yao's heart was beating wildly, and she had a bad premonition coming from the ground. She lowered her head and looked intently, and saw that there were many intricate bright pink light patterns on the ground of the villa at some point. Formation. Chu Yao just wanted to beg Ye Xingzi to get out of here, but found that it was too late. Everywhere the consciousness could reach, the bright pink light had already covered the ground and extended to the street. The entire villa is already in the array. As for the formation method, Chu Yao knew a little about it, and then he accidentally blocked Lu Yun's way. I just don't know if this formation is a temporary simulation or a prearranged arrangement. Judging from the appearance of the opponent, it should be the latter. Chu Yao's first reaction was to press the convenient earphone hanging on her ear to communicate, and warn everyone outside the villa, everyone. Be careful, don't step into the villa area. Get out. It was impossible for her to watch Lu Yun's plan succeed, and with a big wave of his hand, the spirit stone smashed into Lu Yun's body protection aura, as if he didn't want money, and the power of the explosion was no less than a small missile. When Chu Yao thought that he had broken Lu Yun's aura, his steps slowed down by 3 points, and his spirit power stopped. This was not an intentional move, as if there was 1,000 jin heavy stone hanging on every part of her body. This stone was full of bones and tendons. Not only her body and spirit power, it seemed that even the flow of blood in her body was very slow. She had been affected by the formation. It felt a little familiar. But now the battle situation is urgent, and Chu Yao can't let himself think too much. Do you still have subordinates who care about you? Lu Yun's laughter came from the smoke. She walked through the thick fog and flames, and arrived at Chu Yao safely. Take care of yourself. I became popular in StarCraft. When 167 break the game. Lu Yun's face turned pale and her clothes were in disarray. The explosion just now had shocked her greatly. However, compared to Chu Yao's situation, she, the main player, was obviously no better. You said before that you underestimated me. Against the backdrop of the fire, Lu Yun's smile was particularly fierce. She formed another unfinished seal, and dozens of burning fire butterflies appeared again. The air in the villa became even hotter. Go! Lu Yun gave the order, and the flock of butterflies rushed over like rain. With a momentum like a rainbow, they turned into a sea of flames, rushing towards Chu Yao, whose actions were suppressed. With the intent to kill. Chu Yao raised his arm with difficulty, and also summoned a protective aura of his body, barely resisting the attack of the flock of butterflies. These fire butterflies were like a flock of moths that suddenly found light in the dark night, and they rushed towards her bright purple aura shield desperately. The flames almost condensed into matter and melted and dispersed. It made Chu Yao feel like she was in a magma, in an illusion. I felt a burning pain in my chest and back. But she didn't hear it, and her spiritual sense swept through both inside and outside the villa, and now her attention was not on the opponent's fire butterfly secret technique. It was true that Chu Yao didn't understand the formation, but that didn't mean she didn't understand anything. She was looking for the eyes. No matter how big the formation was, it was always the core. As long as the source could be found and destroyed with a single strike, the crisis would naturally be resolved. Aren't you looking for the eyes of the formation? Lu Yun was casually chatting with Chu Yao, while using her spiritual power to increase the intensity of the butterfly group's attacks, with a mocking tone. I advise you to stop. Do you think this is the same as Mi Zhongzhen? What is that? Chu Yao said these 4 words from his mouth with great difficulty. Every part of her body was pale and stiff under the impact of the formation, and it was quite difficult to even lift a finger. Why do I have to tell you? You just need to know that there are no eyes in this formation. No eyes? Chu Yao could see the satisfied smile on Lu Yun's face through the cracks in the fire. Senior Chu, sometimes knowing too much is not a good thing. You like to play with ghosts so much. Today, I will let you and your little ghost play tricks. Come with me. Lu Yun saw that Chu Yao's aura was about to shatter, and with a wave of her hand, the other flying butterflies turned into a stream of fire and condensed into a 9-foot-long giant sword above her head. Chu Yao's face became tense. If she continued to use this giant sword technique, the consequences would be disastrous. Lu Yun would not hold back her hand, and she did not dare to hold back. At this time, she held the upper hand, so she naturally wanted to take the lead. While you are sick, kill you. The giant sword wailed, turned into a laser-like pillar of fire, and pierced towards Chu Yao with great power. Her spiritual light finally became unbearable. And it turned into fragments that scattered in the sky and dispersed with the explosion. At the moment of life and death, Chu Yao let out a long cry, and the spiritual arts in his body violently flowed out, and the cold spiritual power in his dantian poured out like a flood that had broken the bank. These spiritual powers gathered in front of his body, and turned into a long black mirror, protecting his body with the cold wind. The flame sword clashed with the black mirror, and the escaping spiritual power fluctuated like a tornado, and the entire back shook slightly under the huge impact, as if experiencing an unprecedented earthquake. After the two clashed, the two dispersed in midair. Chu Yao felt as if he had been hit hard in the chest, and was continuously hit by the tables, chairs, and sofas that were still intact one after another. Her eyes narrowed, and she felt dizzy in her head, but she still maintained her standing posture, looking for a way to break the situation in a flash. Lu Yun's complexion changed after seeing the black mirror, but it was only a slight change, and he returned to normal in a short time. Are you still thinking about this? Thanks to you, you were able to realize such a trick from the technology of heaven and man. Lu Yun had an indifferent expression. Unfortunately, it is formless and of little use. Then I really overestimated you. Lu Yun replied to what Chu Yao had said to her just now. She felt indescribably happy in her heart. Chu Yao did not reply, and she did not have the strength to reply. The trick just now was just an inspiration in his mind. She originally wanted to use all of her spiritual power to deal with this attack, but she suddenly thought of the previous ghost-like scene, and unintentionally condensed her spiritual power into the appearance of a black mirror. There was a reason for this, because Chu Yao suddenly thought of when she had encountered a similar situation, that was the day before the Yalai Company's warship arrived at the Tianyan sect. Before the golden light and black mirror, the group of monks felt another force, and it was this force that suppressed everyone's cultivation and consciousness to the extreme. At this moment, the feeling of spiritual power in her body was no different from back then. There were only some differences, such as her consciousness was not affected. On the day the sect was destroyed, she could not move freely like now. Could it be that Lu Yun had obtained the secrets within the Yalai Company? Pattern? Why are you confused? It's because I can't believe that I will die here, and my Dao heart is it shattered. Lu Yun was in an unyielding position, and while swearing at each other, she swung a few spells and attacked Chu Yao's body, which was shattered into pieces. Chu Yao, who are you to invade? But our Kongyun sect? And my Lu Yun's son? Chu Yao wailed. In pain, using his body to resist the effects of those spells, all sorts of wounds appeared everywhere on his skin, and blood immediately flowed out, and it turned into a bloody human within a few minutes. But she did not show any signs of weakness, a smile appeared on her half-red and half-white face, and her words were mixed with heavy panting, you admit that he is your wild seed. Lu Yun paused. For a moment, her eyes were filled with anger, her body trembling. He swung the fire into a whip, and within a few steps, he reached Chu Yao's body, and flogged him cruelly. The sharp fire whip slashed his face, turning into a bloodstain that could see deep bones. Chu Yao, who was covered in bruises finally, she could not bear it after suffering such a heavy blow, and fell to the ground. Broken mouth. Lu Yun raised her leg and stepped on Chu Yao's bleeding wound. Her eyes were glowing pink, and a pink light shot out from her fingertips, sneaking into Chu Yao's body. You know, I have changed my mind. I will not let you die, but I want you to live and die. Lu Yun grabbed Chu Yao's hair and immediately dragged her up from the ground. Don't worry. Not only you, but also your disciples and subordinates, your cattail company, I will take good care of you. But when she saw Chu Yao's face, her expression changed, but suddenly became stiff. You know, I have been waiting for you to come closer. Chu Yao's mouth curved into a strange arc, and her eyes were bright. Suddenly, a purple light shot out from her forehead, and a bright purple sword light shot out from her body, like a god descending from the earth, shooting into Lu Yun's chest like a broken bamboo. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 168, Fisherman. A purple light passed through Lu Yun's chest, and a blood-colored light floated into the sky. Lu Yun covered the wound with one hand, with an incredulous look on her face. Zhuang sword. How is this possible? Chu Yao did not reply, and the heavenly touch manipulated the Zhuang sword in and out of Lu Yun's body like a thread. Every attack would hammer a nail into the head without any mercy. Lu Yun wanted to awaken the protective aura of the body, but it was too late. Her body was like a thin piece of paper. After the impact of the Zhuang sword, she swayed in midair, and finally, she fell heavily to the ground in shock and unwillingness. Lu Yun's broken body fell into a pool of blood all over the ground. She died. In order to prevent her from having other ways to conceal the truth, Chu Yao stabbed her corpse with the Zhuang sword a few more times to ensure that she would not die. Finally, she breathed a sigh of relief and sat cross-legged, legs for a while. The effects of the formation continued. But it was getting weaker and weaker, and it seemed that it would disappear in a short time. Of course, if the formation could not be resolved, it was a good way to resolve the main formation. In fact, she had been able to use the Zhuang sword for a long time. It was just that after the previous few battles, Lu Yun's methods had been followed. On the surface, they showed their weakness to the enemy, but in fact, they were looking for an opportunity to kill with a single strike. No matter how arrogant Lu Yun was before, she had now repaid her arrogance. She was dead, but Chu Yao was still alive. The gunshots outside the villa had not stopped. Chu Yao sat in the sea of flames that spread out quietly and rested. She felt a little puzzled in her heart. I don't know what Lu Yun ordered. The first floor is. When the big fire broke out, these people were still upstairs. The old god was shooting on the ground. Didn't anyone think of going downstairs to see the situation? Chu Yao's consciousness was swept away, and she unexpectedly found something on Lu Yun's body. There was a small storage bag in her bag. She took out the storage bag with the Zhuang sword. What caught my eye was a bundle of banknotes and a pile of gold, silver, and jewelry. Other than money, it was money. I didn't expect that Elder Lu was still someone who considered money his life. But where did she get this storage bag? It was a pity that Lu Yun's soul had already returned to heaven, and perhaps no one knew about the origin of this storage bag. Isn't there anything valuable anymore? Chu Yao searched through the pile of treasures on both her left and right, and she found something that seemed valuable. It was a poorly made paper book. Poor paper meant that dozens of pages of hard papyrus were sewn together in a hurry, but the paper was still very new. It could be seen from the words on the paper that it had been recently deciphered. Chu Yao took out the book and flipped through it with a strange expression on his face. This was an exercise book called the Hehuan Heart Sutra. As the name suggested, the general content was to explain how to cultivate through the art of harvesting and nurturing love between men and women. Could this be Lu Yun's method of restoring his cultivation? It wasn't like Chu Yao was a celebrity who hadn't heard of this kind of exercise. Although Hehuan sect wasn't a well-known sect in Feng Yuan Star, it could be considered a well-known sect. She hadn't expected this method to break the shackles that heaven and man had bound a monk like Zhi Lingzi. This was simply too amazing. What was this advanced technology that Shen Yu had spoken of? Chu Yao tapped her chin and began to think about the value of this exercise. As long as you practice it properly, it's a good way to restore your cultivation. If you can advance to a disciple level, the results may be much better than Kunlingju. But we have too many female disciples in the Tianyan sect, so it is not easy to match. Just as Chu Yao was still thinking of letting everyone practice the secret art of the Hehuan, when something happened, her heart immediately beat faster. What? Suddenly, there was a strong heat wave in her body, and it ran fiercely in the meridian sea and acupuncture points. Under the influence of this heat wave, Chu Yao's skin began to turn red and felt, with restlessness in her heart. Chu Yao quickly looked into her body, and finally found the culprit, which was the pink aura that Lu Yun had shot into her body before. Damn it, this is not an ordinary prohibition. She thought it was just some magical restrictions set by Lu Yun, which was lifted with the death of the caster, but now it seems that it is not like that at all. This despicable Lu Yun, when he is about to die, he will plot against me. Chu Yao filled the spider fire pill, and the netherworld arts were forced into action, and cold spiritual veins emerged from her dantian, chasing after and blocking the pink spiritual poison. But the result was not good. The main reason was that the previous battle had used up too much spiritual power, which gave the spiritual poison a chance to take advantage of it. Chu Yao panted heavily, gritted her teeth, and pressed her hands on several acupuncture points. Now, she could only temporarily suppress it. Misfortune never came alone. As Chu Yao tried her best to solve the problems in her body, footsteps came from the stairs not far away. This person was one of the people arranged by Lu Yun in advance. He was wearing a thick security suit, and a helmet covered his face. In his hand was a colorful heavy rifle. Chu Yao had seen this thing before. It was a magic stone rifle. At this moment, the muzzle of the magic stone rifle was pointed directly at Chu Yao's face. She did not speak, but secretly held the Zhuang sword. This person had no cultivation background, just a mortal with a magic stone weapon in his hand. Although he was now seriously injured, but the dignified Foundation establishment monarch was not an ordinary person to be bullied. However, this man did not shoot immediately. He just stood there for a moment, then took off the helmet on his head, revealing a masked face. A curved dagger was drawn on the mask. Chu Yao looked at him with a sense of familiarity. Scanning carefully with her spiritual sense, she finally discovered a clue. Although he was wearing a mask, the iron arm under his sleeve revealed his identity. He was Huang Long. Finally, all the clues were linked together, and Chu Yao finally knew how Lu Yun had contacted the Bloody Alliance. Did you see the battle just now? Facing the magical stone weapon, Chu Yao did not show any fear on his face. The Zodiac is friendly. We are fighting, and you are reaping the benefits. You guys are. What? Does the grievance between the two have anything to do with me? Huang Long did not seem surprised that Chu Yao could see through her identity. Give me your storage bag. I'll give it to you if you want. What's the use? Chu Yao replied with a sneer, besides, now that you look like a human, what's the use of a storage bag? Huang Long remained silent, but his finger had already pulled the trigger. He was a practical person. But as he fired the gun, his eyes under the mask instantly froze. The bullet passed through the sea of flames and hit the empty wall, leaving a row of bullet holes. Suddenly, Chu Yao, who was sitting there, disappeared. At the same time, her voice sounded from behind her. I'm waiting for the formation to fail. What are you waiting for? I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 169 Soul Poison. Huang Long quickly turned around, the magic gun in his hand roared, the bullets shot out behind him, but missed. A thin mist seemed to rise from the roof of the hall, and Chu Yao's faint voice came from the surrounding black mist, making it difficult to determine her exact location. I'm badly injured. The voice came from the front right. Huang Long remained calm as usual, raising the gun and shooting, but the black mist only dispersed for a moment. But you want to kill me with a single gun, isn't it too shameful? Chu Yao's voice came from above Huang Long's head again. No. At the same time, Huang Long turned around for the second time. Purple streaks of light pierced through the air and pierced his neck. After a fierce battle with Lu Yun, the mana in Chu Yao's body was beyond her ability to handle, and coupled with the soul poison, she couldn't hold on for long. Pretending to be a ghost now was just to obstruct Huang Long's judgment, and it wouldn't be good for her to procrastinate. The only way out was to use the thunder to decide the winner as soon as possible. What Chu Yao didn't expect was that just a few inches away from Huang Long's body, a blue light appeared on Zhu Wangjian's body, and the sword blade was blocked by a translucent blue shield. She was so angry that she wanted to curse. How could anyone have a Shinik matrix? Furthermore, the matrix on Huanglong's body was several times stronger than anything Chu Yao had ever seen before. It might be level 2 or level 3. Chu Yao, who was hiding in the black mist, was feeling hot all over. Due to the continuous consumption of mana, the soul poison was surging in her meridians, and an unstoppable frustration rose in her heart. Hell couldn't delay any longer. She had to think of a way immediately. Chu Yao's figure finally appeared in front of Huanglong. He took this opportunity to raise his gun and shoot. Although the gun itself was hot, he didn't think of stopping the shooting. New wounds appeared on her body, but she waved her hand regardless, and used the little mana she had left to cast a small spell. The ground began to shake, broken bricks and tiles collapsed all over the sky, and 4 tall stone walls rose up around Huanglong. These stone walls twisted and twisted together in a few seconds, locking Huanglong inside like a prison. There was a dull sound in the stone prison. Huanglong naturally couldn't sit still. Under the hammering of his mechanical arm, gravel and dirt kept flying from the shell of the prison. Chu Yao grabbed her storage bag and poured out all the gunpowder weapons she had prepared earlier, including 2 large boxes of machine gun bullets, 5 Molotov cocktails, 5 tubes of explosives, more than 20 bombs, and even a few small mortars. This was what Chu Yao had brought out from the Mao Yi Company's arsenal after the battle with the Mechs. That battle had taught Chu Yao a profound lesson. That rainy day, it used to be useless because it was unnecessary. Now facing the troublesome Shinik matrix, these heavenly weapons were finally useful, but Chu Yao's usage was rather rough. When the pile of gunpowder weapons appeared before him, a sense of crisis flooded Chu Yao's heart. Using Yexing Ju at full speed, Chu Yao ran away, and she knocked a large hole in the building's door. When the fire broke out in the villa, she no longer needed to light a fire. The earphones she used to communicate had fallen out during the battle, and it was unclear what was happening outside. However, the sound of gunfire seemed to have become fainter, and it seemed that the battle was approaching. While fleeing, Chu Yao also saw a familiar figure. It was Lin Wu and Su Binger. They were wearing puffy protective gear, and they were walking towards the villa in the shadows. It seemed that they were about to meet Chu Yao. Before they could react, Chu Yao grabbed one of them in his hand like a chick, dragged it away, and ran away. Chu! Brother Chu! Lin Wu looked at Chu Yao, who was running wildly with a shocked expression. The 3 of them immediately left the range of the villa, and Chu Yao immediately warned everyone. Run! Run far away! There's a bomb! Bomb! The battle continued, and everyone was puzzled, but since Miss Chu was fine, she retreated to the street. The villa was eerily quiet. The silence did not last long, and the dazzling lights came out from every window on the first floor. The entire villa was like a crushed water polo, and the flood-like flames rolled all kinds of furniture pieces and glass fragments in all directions. After being thrown repeatedly, the building collapsed, along with the explosion that shattered the earth. Finally, the structure at the lowest level could not support it. The second and third floors, like dominoes that had lost their center, began to collapse from the center. The scene was tragic. Thick smoke billowed in the night, and the sound here even covered the sound of the concert not far away. Are you going to die now? Chu Yao looked at the sea of fire in front of her with lingering fear. She finally could not stand, and she was about to fall when she tilted her body. Su Binger had quick hands and sharp eyes. And the first step to hug Chu Yao in her arms. Quick, let's go to the hospital. Wait. Don't go to the hospital, take me back to Princess Yet. Go back to the dark room. Su Binger's arm was hurt by Chu Yao's hand. Sister Chu's injuries were very serious, how could she still have so much strength? Although unwilling, but since Chu Yao said so, everyone naturally followed and hurriedly carried him into the car. Don't evacuate them all, save more people to count the dead inside, don't let anyone go, see if there is a man with a tattoo on his face, his left arm looks like a machine. Chu Yao continued to speak, then his skin turned slightly red, and his trembling eyes seemed to be thinking non-stop. Su Binger looked at Chu Yao's face through the rearview mirror worriedly. Such an excited look, it didn't look like she had just experienced a big fight. What happened to Sister Chu? I'll use the turtle breathing technique temporarily to fall asleep, don't forget to tell Xiao Ran that I'm looking for someone. She knows who I'm looking for, understand? I understand the words. Su Binger nodded like a chicken pecking it. Chu Yao's rice like this made her a little shocked. Het. Chu Yao took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly restlessly, as if she was forced to control her movements. When I enter the dark room, remember to lock the door, no one can approach, understand? Chu Yao seemed to feel Binger's uneasiness, so she spoke as softly as she could. She didn't want this neurotic appearance either. The spiritual poison affected her consciousness, and she couldn't suppress it. Remember, it's not anyone, especially a man. A man. What does that mean? Su Binger was stunned and turned to look at Chu Yao with a confused face. Recently, she has been closing her eyes for a while. I became popular in StarCraft. Chapter 170 Looking for the First Continent, Tianhai City. On a dark narrow street, two figures, one tall and one short, walked side by side amidst the crowd. The short girl had bright eyes and held a hawthorn ice cream in her hand. The tall, mature woman had long flowing hair and white silk like a waterfall, which was quite eye-catching. The two were Bai Yuejian and Lu Xiao, who had just returned from their journey. They had just returned to Tianhai today and were still looking for a place to live. Master, how can we find Master Chu? Lu Xiao licked her lips, which were stained red by the ice cream. Uncleship, it was a prestigious position, and what she said was Chu Yao. It seemed that Bai Yuejian still accepted Xiao as her disciple, and I don't know why she changed her mind after not accepting a single apprentice in 100 years. Don't worry, with Uncle Chu's temperament, it is estimated that Tianhai has turned upside down. When we find someone to ask, we might find some clues. Yes. Lu Xiao nodded. Face. Although she had only gotten along with Chu Yao for a short time, she had a feeling that this uncle had a detached personality. Looking at the familiar street scene in front of her, Xiao Ye couldn't help but feel emotional. 2 years had passed quickly, and everything was still the same. However, there had been a change. I don't know if it was her illusion, but the rules and regulations in the dark street seemed to be much better than before. She remembered that the dark street in the past was very chaotic. Even in broad daylight, there were often gangsters fighting, and theft and robbery on the street were common. But now, there were almost none. There were more peddlers pushing carts, and more people walking around. The three girls in school uniforms chatted past the two of them and ran to a milk tea shop not far away. Looking at their appearances, the color of memories in Xiao Ye's eyes became more and more intense. Speaking of which, she was 17 years old this year. If she hadn't met Chu Yao and Bai Yuejian, she would have been working part-time or studying in high school by now. The chance encounter had changed her life. Master, I want to visit Grandpa's tomb. That's normal, but let me find a place to stay first. Let me see the map. Bai Yuejian's eyes turned to the phone. In the past 2 years, they hadn't lived like hermits in the mountains. They had visited almost all the cities in the first continent. Bai Yuejian's understanding of the society between heaven and man and technology was no less than Chu Yao's. Before arriving in Tianhai City, she had booked a hotel with her mobile phone. Lu Xiao was quietly nibbling on ice cream beside her, and when she was thinking about drinking milk tea, her body suddenly stiffened, and her eyes flashed with a fierce light. As she secretly scanned the surroundings, she sent a message into Bai Yuejian's ear. Master, someone is following us. He has been following us for 5 minutes. Bai Yuejian's gaze remained on the phone screen, as if I didn't care who was following you. I know what you're thinking. Go ahead and find out the details of this person, and try to avoid people's eyes. Okay. Lu Xiao threw the popsicle into the trash can beside her, put her hand on her chest, it shook for a while, and then suddenly disappeared. Except for the stalker in the far corner, no one noticed that the little girl had disappeared into the crowd. The stalker was a young man in his 20s, and he was taken aback. Why did one of these two lose one of them just by looking up? Where did that woman go? The panicked young man stood on tiptoe and looked around. Before he could see far, a strong force came from behind him, and he was dragged by his clothes into a narrow alley with a person behind him. The young man's body trembled violently, and he saw the missing girl appear before his eyes, one hand clutching his collar. And his eyes were cold. Tell me, why did you follow us? Lu Xiao still held the dagger in the other hand, and the cold blade pressed against the young man's neck, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Wait, wait. Don't worry. Your name is Lu Xiao, right? The dagger moved closer, and Xiao's face tightened. Why do you know my name? Hurry up, the sword has no eyes. I didn't mean anything. My name is Maoan. The young man seemed to want to explain his identity, but he thought of the commander's order, so he changed the phrase, that's Sister Chu who asked us to come to you. Sister Chu. Lu Xiao was taken aback. Except for Shishu, she didn't seem to know the second person with the surname Chu. Lu Xiao thought for a moment, then pulled the dagger back, and led the young man to Bai Yuejian's side. Bai Yuejian was not surprised by the young man's intention. They found a nearby coffee shop and sat down to talk. The young man still grabbed his neck with lingering fear, and revealed the identity and origin of the two of them. Mao Yi Company. Bai Yuejian took a sip of coffee and repeated the name. Chu Xiao, is this your president's name? Yes. My boss said that if we find you, we must act as soon as possible. Take you to the third continent, please help me. I also follow orders. When did this order come? 2 days ago. The young man pondered for a moment, and felt that this was not a secret that could not be revealed. If you want to complete the mission, you must first gain the trust of the two of them. 2 days, why are you so anxious? Sorry, that goes beyond our duty to find someone. We only know that the notification is urgent. The young man's movements were a little awkward. Bai Yuejian turned her head and looked at Lu Xiao. Xiao, you don't have to stare at him like that. Humph, sarcasm, you don't seem like a good person. Do we have to believe what you say? Since you are a cat's tail, why can't they find evidence in the company? This. The young man looked at Bai Yuejian with embarrassment and pointed at his bag. It wasn't that he didn't want to take it, but Xiao Ya looked at him as if he was protecting a thief from the sidelines. Even though he walked a few steps faster, his eyes seemed to pull out a knife and slash at himself in the next second. It's fine. Bai Yuejian signaled to Xiao Ya, who walked up to the young man and took out a smartphone from his bag. No tricks. Lu Xiao Ya handed the phone to the young man. After flipping through it, the young man finally contacted with his boss. After several layers of contact, the cross-ocean video call was connected in front of both of them. After seeing the appearance of the person on the other side of the video, Bai Yuejian's worries completely disappeared. Master Chen. Bai Yuejian's face showed the joy of being reunited. Senior Bai, we have been waiting for you for a long time. Chen Qingye's complexion was a little heavy, but he still forced a smile. It's not too late. We have prepared a special plane for Tianhai. You just need to go there according to their agreement. Chen Qingye, tell me the truth. Seeing Qingye's unnatural expression, Bai Yuejian's face became serious. You guys are looking for me so eagerly. What's wrong with Chu? Chu Xiao. I guessed that Chu Xiao should be my little sister's alias. Little sister has developed herself a little too much, and always asks for everything. But it was the little sister who suddenly started looking for herself. Then she only thought of this possibility. Yes. Chen Xingye nodded after a long silence. Especially, let's talk after you arrive.